It's Sunday, March 15th, 2026, and apparently, it's everything you think is wrong day, which is honestly the most accurate holiday the AI internet could have invented. This is CoeCast. I'm Hunter.
And I'm Riley. Also, heads up, this episode is fully machine-made. Like, the script, the voices, the whole conveyor belt. So if we take a left turn into chaos, that's not an accident, that's the experiment.
Yep, we keep the weird. Today we're talking about 3 stories that all rhyme. Claude is doing this in Excel and PowerPoint thing via Microsoft Office add-ins, plus it temporarily doubled usage limits for Claude and PowerPoint for paid plans, and it's been generating native PowerPoint charts and turning bullet points into diagrams.
Meanwhile on X, Llama 4 discourse is popping off again. Open weights and the ultra-long context claims are not totally made up. Llama 4 Scout is the one Meta talked about, with a 10 million token context window, and it's natively multimodal for text and images. And then there's this giant flagship everyone keeps name-dropping like it's a celebrity sighting.
And then the agent people are screaming because of OpenClaw. There are OpenAI picked up the founder headlines, and folks are hyping persistent agents that can actually drive a real Chromium browser.
Okay, I'm already sweating. Because these 3 together are basically, your workflow is about to be haunted by robots inside the apps you hate the most.
Exactly. So let's start with Claude in Excel and PowerPoint. If that's real, what's the first marketing workflow you'd trust with your reputation? Not a demo, not a cute chart, something you'd actually send to a client.
I would trust it with the weekly performance recap deck. Like, here's what happened, here's why, here's what we're doing next. Because the raw ingredients are structured. It's like spend, clicks, conversions, creative names, audience segments. It's a numbers story.
Yeah, and it's also repeatable. That's key. I'd bet on an analysis-to-deck pipeline, where Claude reads the Excel tab, generates the chart, and then writes the slide narrative in the same context. No more copy-paste loops, no more why is this axis different now.
Wait, hold up. I'm gonna challenge you, Hunt. The weekly deck is exactly where people get lazy and start shipping vibes. If Claude is too smooth, we'll get these gorgeous slides that are just politely wrong.
Totally. That's the trap. The first workflow I trust is one where Claude is forced to show receipts. Like, every chart it generates must reference the exact columns and the filters it applied. And if it can't, it has to say, I'm not confident.
That's such a mood. I want the model to be slightly annoying, like a little hall monitor but for truth. Because marketers, bless us, will weaponize a nice-looking chart. We will take a clean line graph and tell a heroic story that the data does not deserve.
Exactly. Native charts and diagrams are powerful, but they're also a persuasion amplifier. If the chart is wrong, it's wrong with confidence and typography.
The most common way people will mess this up is they'll paste messy export data with duplicates or weird date windows and then ask for top-performing creative. And Claude will comply. And then you'll proudly kill the actual winner because the naming conventions were trash.
Or you'll get the classic blended metrics soup, like mixing paid and organic, mixing attribution models, mixing regions that shouldn't be grouped. The chart renders, everyone nods, and then you're optimizing a hallucination.
Okay, so what's the fix? Because everyone listening is like, cool warning, but I still want the magic.
The fix is boring, which is why it works. Make a reporting contract. You define the metric definitions, the allowed filters, and the time window rules. And you make Claude stick to that. Then you add a quick human checkpoint where someone reads the assumptions out loud before the deck goes out.
So you're basically saying, treat charts like production assets. They need QA, like captions in a video. You don't just eyeball it and pray.
Exactly. And Claude being in Office makes that easier, because the context is right there. You can literally say, before you write conclusions, list your assumptions and flag any missing fields. That's a workflow upgrade, not just an AI trick.
Okay, the other Claude thing. The temporary doubling of usage limits. People were cheering like it was a concert.
Yeah. Is it generous, or is it a stress test before something breaks?
I think it's both. It's like when a restaurant gives you extra fries. Are they being nice? Yes. Are they also trying to get you addicted? Also yes. And on everything you think is wrong day, I'm assuming it's a chaos test. Like, can the infrastructure survive the next wave of everyone build agents now?
That's my read too. I think it's also a behavioral nudge. If you remove the I'm going to run out of messages anxiety, people start using Claude as a workflow engine, not just a chat buddy. And then you see what breaks in real usage patterns.
And what breaks is always people. Like, they'll use the extra limits to iterate forever instead of committing. You know that meme where someone keeps polishing a slide until it becomes worse?
Yes. Higher limits can mean higher throughput, or they can mean you ship mediocre at historically unprecedented velocity.
Which honestly might be the real business model of the modern internet.
Painful but fair.
Okay, pivot. Llama 4 discourse. Open weights plus ultra-long context. When do open source models stop being toy side projects and become the default for enterprise marketing teams?
I think it flips when the operations story gets boring, like when running an open weight model feels like running any other internal service, monitoring, version pinning, access controls, and it doesn't take a wizard to keep it alive.
So when the "you own the pager at 3 a.m. vibe becomes "this is just part of our stack."
Exactly. And I'll add, the economics are a huge deal. On X, a lot of the hype is basically, we can run this cheaper than the top closed models, and we can keep sensitive data closer. For marketing teams, that's the moment you start feeding the model your messy internal stuff. Customer notes, sales calls, creative history, the stuff you don't want leaving your walls.
Yeah, but the politics. If you can run the company brain on-prem, who gets access first? Security? Legal? Some random growth person who is definitely going to paste in a spicy spreadsheet?
The internal politics absolutely show up first. Everyone wants the magic, nobody wants the liability. So the order usually becomes security posture, then brand governance, then access. Because if you don't do that, you'll get a shadow AI server spinning under someone's desk named final-LLM-prod.
Stop, I can see it. A dusty Mac Mini Tower of Doom.
And then you have long context claims. 10 million tokens sounds like, congrats, you can keep your entire mess forever.
At what point does more context stop helping? Because I feel like after a certain point, you're just paying to preserve confusion.
Yeah. Past a point, you're not adding signal, you're adding contradictions. The model has more to remember, but you have not decided what matters. So the value flips from bigger context to better curation. You need retrieval, summaries, and a clean source of truth. Otherwise, you get context rot.
Context rot is such a phrase. Like the model starts treating your old brainstorm doc as scripture.
Exactly. And it will confidently recommend last year's offer because it's in the pile.
Which brings us to OpenClaw and browser control agents. If agents can operate real Chrome-like, actually drive a Chromium browser, what's the most likely future? Helpful persistent local agents, or security nightmares that click the wrong thing at scale?
Both. But the scary part isn't that they click the wrong thing. The scary part is they click the right thing with the wrong intent. Like they follow instructions, but the instructions were ambiguous, or the web page changed, or the agent gets tricked by a fake login page.
Phishing, but make it automated, cute.
Exactly. Browser agents expand your attack surface massively. The minute an agent can act like a human in a browser, you need permissioning like you would for a junior employee with admin access, which is to say, you do not give them admin access.
So where do you draw the line between marketing automation and we built a very polite botnet with a content calendar?
The line is intent plus controls. Marketing automation should be operating within explicit accounts, explicit permissions, and a clear audit trail. If you can't answer what did it click when and why, you're in nightmare territory.
Also, if it can post, it can embarrass you. And if it can DM, it can ruin your life.
Yep. So if you're going to use OpenClaw-style agents, start with read-only tasks, research, collection, summarization. Then graduate to draft mode, where it prepares posts or emails but a human hits send.
I'm obsessed with draft mode. It's like giving the agent a learner permit.
Exactly. And you can still get massive leverage. Think it watches campaign performance, pulls screenshots and notes, drafts a recap deck in PowerPoint, and queues up recommended changes. Human approves, machine does the grind.
Okay, I'm gonna tie the three stories together. Claude is moving into Office via add-ins, Llama is pushing open and long context, and OpenClaw is pushing agents into browsers. The common theme is less copy-paste, more continuous workflows.
Yes, the UI is becoming the workflow, and the workflow is becoming a system. The creative and marketing operator becomes less of a doer and more of a director. You design guardrails, critics, and approval loops.
And on everything you think is wrong day, the big reminder is, the output looking good does not mean it is correct. The nicer the chart, the more dangerous the lie.
That's the episode title right there.
Hunter, no, that's too real.
All right, y'all, thanks for hanging with us on CoeCast.
Subscribe wherever you listen, and go check out coe.com/resources for AI news and updates.
And since it's everything you think is wrong day, maybe do one tiny rebellious thing. Make your AI show its assumptions before it makes your deck.
Catch you next time.